Hey guys, welcome back to the episode of Hayden Newberry Fishing. Tonight I'm going to go over my fantasy fishing picks for Lake Fork. I didn't do a video over Toledo Bend. I just didn't have time to actually video what I was doing because I kind of did them last minute. I really forgot about fantasy fishing till like 10 hours before everything was supposed to be locked in, but if you guys haven't done it, it's actually pretty cool. If you know bass fishing at all, it's kind of cool to try to go through and pick everything throughout the year. But after the first tournament at Toledo Bend, my overall PCT or whatever, how many people you're ahead of, I'm at 96.1. So I guess I did pretty good in the first tournament. I've got like 1,164 points, which I felt like I had some pretty good picks for Toledo Bend because I knew some things about some guys in the field that I felt like a lot of people knew, but some people didn't when it came to really what was going to play the best and what guys knew to go out there and live scope primarily. But Lake Fork's going to be super interesting because they're hitting it at a weird time to where you would think it's going to be a sight fishing thing, and then it might not be. The weather down there is kind of weird. They're getting some like big winds going into the tournament. Could muddy up some of the shallow waters, and some cold weather that could possibly delay some of the big ones moving up on bed just a little bit. And it never fails on places like Toledo Bend and Lake Fork with a lot of standing timber. Then in those weird pre-spawn times that you get some fish that just kind of hold up out there in the timber, or people are catching on beds out there just a little bit off the bank. And so I don't doubt at all that live scope's going to play. But when I was picking these, kind of going through, I've already got some selected here. I was really looking for the guys that are good sight fishermen and good live scopers, because I really think that by the time Sunday rolls around, they're going to be on the beds pretty heavy, possibly, especially after a couple calmer days and some sunny, warm days. But it's supposed to be kind of chilly going in the first few days of the tournament. But out of the first group here, so we'll do the fantasy fishing, then we'll go through and do drain the lake. So the first guy that I picked, it was really tough not to pick like a Stetson Blaylock or an Austin Felix for this. And I will say, I picked Austin Felix in the last tournament on my drain the lake, and I did it just solely because I thought that he was a good pick for like a standing timber live scoper. And then he was in like 5th place after day one, and I was really happy about that. But then he dropped down a little bit, but I was pretty proud of that one because I felt like he was not one that was picked a lot for Toledo Bend. But out of this first group, really tough to pick. Really, this is one of those that's just like a stacked first group. You got Stetson Blaylock, Austin Felix, Cooper, Koyo Fujita, just a lot of. But the big deal is that Koyo is notoriously just not good when they're hammering him up shallow. Those are the one out of all the tournaments. Those tend to be the ones that he's not gonna be the pick on. And then Ben Milliken, another one that I'm not so sure that he's a sight fisherman. He can. I mean, don't doubt that he can sight fish, but I don't know if that's his game. So Patrick Walters is in here, and Patrick Walters is a low-key amazing, not low-key, but I feel like he's just undersold on it, amazing sight fisherman and an amazing live scoper, and has a really good history on Lake Fork. So he's my pick out of the first group here. Going on to Group B, we've got Matt Airy, Brandon Card, all good picks. Cody Huff, good pick. Taku. This one though is, to me, it was an all over the place, because even if you look at the percentages of like what people have picked out of this group, everybody's all over the place. Matt Airy's got quite a few picks, which he's good. Taku got a lot, which I'm sure just because he does good about everywhere he goes. But I went with David Mullins. because again, Taku I don't think is much of a sight fisherman. David Mullins, when fish are spawning anywhere, and when you have these tournaments that are big transition tournaments, David Mullins has a history last year, and I also am basing it some off the anglers that struggled last year, because generally guys that are routinely just good everywhere, they don't struggle for 2 years in a row. So I'm kind of trying to stay away from picking guys that were just great last year, because they very well could switch and have an off year this year. And those guys that are usually great that weren't so great last year and kind of fell out of everybody's mind as good picks could be great picks this year. So I picked David Mullins out of Group B because I'm anticipating that he's going to have a good year. Might be completely wrong. Hopefully I don't do that and he blows it on Lake Fork. The third group, it was like Group C. I feel like this was like the easiest pick for anybody, just because I would feel stupid not to pick Lee Levacy when he's won there twice. He's only had one tournament that he slipped up a little bit, and he still, I think, had like a top 10. So I don't think that you can really hardly pick anybody else in this group. But you got John Cox, Drew Cook, all the sight fishermen, but Lee Livesey can sight fish too, and he also knows Lake Fork better than anybody. So I just feel like it would be dumb not to pick him. But I know what they did here. They stuck just all the hammers that could possibly do really good on this lake. I mean, you got Brandon Lester, Tyler Vett, Matt Robertson, Clark Winlet. I mean, Brandon Polinick, John Cox, Drew Cook, Hank Cherry, Drew Benton, Atkins, which Atkins was kind of did bad in the last tournament, but he's just been on a bad run. But anyway, to sum up that one, I feel like you're an idiot if you don't pick Lee Livesey. It looks like 66% of people picked him. Obviously, we know why. Group D, I'll keep running through this. I picked Jason Christie. If you don't keep up with him, also really good when fish are moving up super shallow. And he will be catching them this week on a frog. 100%. Wait for the highlight. Jason Christie is probably going to catch a giant on a frog. He just does it this time of year, especially down in Texas. So I picked him. There's some really good ones in this one. You got Gerald Swindle. He did really good last year. But there's just Keith Combs, Joey Cifuentes, another really good pick for this event. But Jason Christie is hard to beat. And I am the guy going around picking veterans, even though I do know that these new guys are really good. But when you get these smaller lakes, I don't know how they're all going to perform when you're around a bunch of veterans fishing a smaller body of water. Lake Fork is a smaller body of water. If you look at it on a map compared to Toledo Bend, these guys are going to be fishing close together. It's different. So most of them are, I mean, practically veterans already if you make the Elite Series, but it is kind of different. I don't know how that's going to shake out as well for them. It's easier, I guess, for a newer guy to kind of get pushed around a little bit. Then we're going to go to Group E. Who did I even pick out of Group E? Oh, yeah. Obviously, very good shallow. Has turned into a pretty good live scope or two. Kyle Welcher. That was another one I felt like was almost no-brainer. Greg Hackney's also in there, but Greg Hackney, if the first 2 days the bed fishing isn't great and the shallow water bite's not great, he's going to have trouble making up for that. And I don't know if the same thing happened on Toledo Bend. They didn't catch him real good up shallow, and Hackney kind of fell out of it. So I went with Welcher because he's one that I feel like can survive that start to the tournament. So now I'm going to go over to the Drain the Lake. I feel like this is the way more interesting portion of it. After the first tournament, my overall PCT is 89%. So I guess that means that, from what I understand, that you are beating 89. That's what it says. Is percentage of entries contest that you're ahead of is 89%. So I think I did pretty good on the first tournament. We'll go to my roster here so I did go through and pick these, so I can run through them real quick with you guys. Again, I opened it up and I went ahead and selected Lee Livesey because I felt like it would be dumb not to select him. So what's funny about this is that a lot of times your Drain the Lake is going to contradict your fantasy fishing picks, because you'll you'll pick these guys based on some of that. So don't be surprised when a lot of these contradict things I just said, but it's where you're going to use them that you think they'll do the best throughout the year. And we have a lot of deep and live scope tournaments, stuff like that, that I'm saving. I'm saving the new guys. The new guys are all live scopers. If you're not aware, they are tried and true hardcore live scopers. I'll start this out and let you guys know who I burned through the first tournament. And one of them I really regret. I used Keith Combs on the first one. Instead of using him on Lake Fork, it was between the two. And I used him on the first one, which I felt like was dumb because he ended up finishing 72nd. Kind of disappointed in him. Austin Felix finished 17th. That was one that I talked about. I was kind of proud of. Cody Huff, I was there. I was on Toledo Bend, the Toyota Series tournament back in, I guess it was 2019 or 2020, sorry, where Cody Huff kind of exposed live scope. I was out there catching him on 2D with a jig and spoon and a drop shot on Toledo Bend, and Cody Huff was right there in the same group, just, I mean, trolling motor on high, just killing them. And I'm sitting there kind of on one side, idle around, try to find them with my side imaging, then stop, get them under the boat. That was back when you could hardly catch them that way. I feel like it's almost impossible to sit over the top of one with a jig and spoon or get close with like a drop shot and do that. But that was what I was doing back in 2020. I saw Cody Huff doing that, so I picked him. He ended up finishing 26th. Logan Watuso, disappointed in him. I put him on there. He finished 78th. That was kind of my gamble if they stayed shallow or if he figured him out deep just because he's aware. Ben Milliken, I burned him instead of saving him for the Classic or Lake Fork, because who wouldn't go ahead and burn him? He finished 6th. That was a good pick. John Sukup, because I knew it was a live scope tournament and I didn't want to burn my good live scopers. John Sukup's a good live scoper, but I didn't want to burn my young gun live scopers. I wanted to save them for these later tournaments. I picked John Sukup. He finished 38th. Caleb Summerall, another one that just I kind of had a feeling he would know it good enough. He finished 31st. And then Gerald Swindle, disappointed in him also. He finished 69th. I really thought he was going to do better in that one too, because I thought it might turn into kind of a junk fishing, running water tournament. So that's who I've got burning through so far. So first pick out of the Drain the Lake goes right against what I just told you guys, but because this is where I felt like I could use him, because we're going to get to portions of the country where his skills are not going to help a lot pretty shortly. Their schedule's horrible for the shallow water guy like Greg Hackney from what I've seen. So I picked Greg Hackney, hoping that he'll be able to get a middle of the road finish, and then maybe it'll go crazy shallow and he'll do great. But I actually just kind of picked him because I had to use him before we moved elsewhere. Steve Kennedy, I also picked him because I don't think he's going to do well when we go to some other parts of the country. He's generally pretty good in this type of situation. So I'm hoping, just hoping, a lot of these are kind of weird picks, but they make sense to me on who I'm saving, because I'm picking like Steve Kennedy. I've got, whenever we get to another live scope tournament later in the season, I still have all my live scopers. I have not burned one of them hardly yet. One of the like just tried and true young live scopers. Kenta Kimura generally does pretty well in Lake Fork, and he catches them everywhere. Another one that he's kind of an older live scoper. The Japanese guys are, but if you noticed, I'm saving. Koya won the last one, but he also top 10 like 5 last year. So I'm saving these guys for these tougher live scope tournaments that are coming. And Kenta is one that I felt like I could go ahead and use up on Lake Fork, because I think that's kind of his wheelhouse. Lee Livesey, again, I picked him. Another one that I don't think a lot of people picked, but this is kind of his deal. He's an old. I guess when I'm on the old live scoper thing, kind of old live scopers along with guys that just routinely do pretty well. And I've seen Paul Mueller do really well live scoping all depths of water in these weird pre-spawn transitioning into bed fishing tournaments. Paul Mueller tends to do really well, so I picked him, and then I picked David Mullins again because this is one of the tournaments that I think he'll do well in. Might be wrong. And then I picked Chris Zaldane, another one that he's picking up the whole live scoping thing, but I don't know as we get on through the season. I don't want to leave Texas without using Chris Zaldane, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and use him on Lake Fork. Hopefully he has a really good finish. And then, sorry, I said I was saving all of them. I actually burned through one shallow or one hardcore live scoper that qualified last year, and this one I completely forgot. I actually went back and picked him. I think I actually changed one of these picks. I can't remember who I changed out. I might have changed out Brandon Card for him. But I picked JT Tompkins because these live scopers, and actually I picked Tompkins is a weird way to do it, but I picked him because he had a lesser than normal finish for him last tournament. Just by the rule of odds, if he continues on his current path, his next one will be right back on track. And this is very possibly going to be one of those where live scope's going to play. So JT Tompkins, and I also know that he's a bit of a shallow water guy too. He doesn't show it a lot, but he can fish up shallow for sure. So JT Tompkins, Chris Zaldane, David Mullins, Paul Mueller, Lee Levacy, Kenta, Steve Kennedy, and Greg Hackney are my picks. The reason why I'm picking those guys is because I'm saving my shallow water live scopers, and I'm saving my Jason Christie's and stuff for the classic. Jason Christie, I was not going to burn him before we go to Grand. There's also a few others that I'm not going to say just yet that I'm also saving for Grand Lake, because that's going to be one that I feel like Grand's one of those places that if you're good there, you're good there. So I'm going to hope that stays true this year. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, guys. We'll kind of continue on. I think I'll probably try to do at least one of these videos every tournament, explaining all this stuff to you guys. Thanks for watching.